While the world is completely focused on Ukraine, a US consulate came under attack in Iraq. Iran claimed responsibility. Iran's Revolutionary Guard alleged that the target was an Israeli so-called strategic center. But the real reason behind the target and the timing might also be something else, something more related to the war in Ukraine. So what happened exactly and why? And what's going to happen? This is what I'm talking about in this video. I'm Rafid Jaboori, a journalist and researcher, and this is my YouTube channel. Welcome. The missiles fell very close to the US consulate. Over the last few years, the consulate and the US troops in Kurdistan have been targeted more than once by rocket attacks by Iran-backed Shia militias. However, they never received a direct hit, nor they reported severe casualties or serious damage. And there was no US casualties in Sunday's attack. But this time around, it was Iran itself that launched the attack from its own territory. The Iranian statement claimed that the target was an Israeli strategic center as revenge to recent crimes. Many noticed that two senior Iranian military commanders were killed in a recent Israeli raid in Damascus in neighboring Syria, where Iran and Shia militias have been fighting on the side of the government of the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad against the predominantly Sunni opposition. And Iran, of course, is the main Shia power in the Middle East. And Israel has frequently launched airstrikes against Iranian targets in Syria. Now back to Iraq. Several countries have been meddling in the Iraqi internal affairs since the US-led invasion of 2003. But Iran, by far, has the biggest influence in that country. However, in the semi-autonomous region of Kurdistan in northern Iraq, Iran has to share some of its influence with Turkey. The Kurdistan region is dominated by two Kurdish factions. One is pro-Iran and is led by the Talabani family. It controls most of the sector that is next to Iran. The other is led by the Barzani family, which has ties to Iran but stronger strategic relations with Turkey. Erbil, where the Sunday attack happened, is in the Barzani-ruled area. Now, was the target really an Israeli center? We don't know. Iran called it Zionist, but Iran has a very loose definition to what is Zionist and what is not. The Kurds are on better terms with Israel than the Arabs, but they never admitted having relations with Israel or having Israeli presence in Kurdistan. In addition to the conflict with Israel, there's also what in the Middle East? What? Yes, oil. In the last 2 decades, Kurdistan became an oil producer and exporter. And in the last few years, even big natural gas reserves were found. But there has been a complicated dispute between the Kurdistan regional government and the Shia-led federal government of all Iraq over who should control the oil and gas resources. Most of the major US oil giants left Kurdistan or did not invest in the oil and gas sector in the Kurdish region and leaned towards the position of the Iraqi federal government. But others, like Turkey, the UAE, and even Russia, did invest in Kurdistan. Now, back to the Sunday attack. The Kurdish authorities said the strike hit a residential area. This is a house, a mansion, I should say, that took the biggest hit. It belongs to a gentleman by the name Sheikh Baz Karim. He is the owner of car company. It owns 40% of the pipeline networks that transfer the Kurdistan oil to Turkey to be exported via Turkish ports on the Mediterranean Sea. Those exports have become more important and profitable for the Kurds and Turkey after the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the US and Western sanctions on Russia. I said Sheikh Baz Kurdish company owned 40% of the pipeline networks. But guess who owns the rest? Rosneft, the Russian oil giant. Russia and Iran are strategic partners, but Russia has recently aborted the almost done new nuclear deal between the US and Western powers and Iran. The deal was going to bring back Iran into the oil and gas global market, at a time where Russia is under pressure and losing customers because of the US and Western sanctions. Iran is a big oil producer and a giant gas producer. Russia wanted guarantees that the sanctions imposed because of its invasion of Ukraine would not affect its dealings with Iran, and the US said no. So Iran's attack on March 13, 2022 in Erbil, and the way it was done, publicly and directly by Iran, not indirectly by its proxies, could well be more than just a payback and a message to Israel. It could have been a message to Russia, Turkey, the Iraqi Kurds, the Iraqi Arab, and the world. The US condemned the attack but said it didn't think it was against the US. What do you think? Will the US be able to play Russia and Iran against each other? I'll be interested in reading what you think. Please write it in the comment. And we will be following this story and other stories in the Middle East and the world. So please subscribe to this channel and activate the bell button. Thank you.